My name is Barry McDonough and I'm the creator of the Panic Away program. The Panic Away program is designed to accomplish two specific goals: to stop panic attacks and to eliminate general anxiety. Every single person can eliminate panic attacks and general anxiety by following this program. I can speak with authority on this because I've seen it eliminate anxiety for countless people who would have deemed themselves incurable. At the core of the Panic Away program is the 21-7 technique. You can think of this technique as first aid for anxiety. This technique is made up of two separate components. You have the 21-second countdown, which stops panic attacks, and then the 7-minute exercise, which reduces feelings of general anxiety. Combined together, they make up one of the most effective solutions for ending an anxiety disorder. Once you've learned the 21-7 technique, you will then learn about calm recovery, which is a holistic approach to ensuring lasting recovery from anxiety. I created this course several years ago after I discovered how to end my own panic attacks and general anxiety. Little did I know then that the solution I developed for myself would go on to become a successful solution for thousands of people worldwide. I'm really glad to have this opportunity to share that solution with you today. This presentation is a summary of the key techniques in the Panic Away program, but please ensure you read the book and listen to the audio recordings that accompany it, or you will miss out on a lot of important information to help speed your recovery. Following this program will enable you to make a quick recovery from anxiety. But I must point out that every recovery should first begin with a visit to your doctor to confirm there is no underlying medical issues that might be causing your symptoms. Getting the right checkups will do a lot to help ease your mind. Let's begin by taking a look at how a typical panic attack manifests.
Jane has just left work and is in the supermarket doing her weekly shopping. She's got a lot of things on her mind and has been rushing around, throwing all the items she needs into the shopping cart. While checking the price on a can of goods, she notices something strange. Her heart has suddenly begun to beat hard, so hard, in fact, that it is pulsating in her throat. This startles her, and she notices how her arm begins to shake with a pins and needles sensation. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened to her. She is confused and starting to get really scared. Something must be wrong, she thinks, and begins to mentally list all the possible things it could be. Is this the start of a heart attack? Is it an allergic reaction to something I ate? Her stomach and chest muscles feel really tense, and her breathing becomes faster and more shallow. She glances around at the people near her, and as she does, she feels lightheaded and dizzy. The confusion and fear she feels is sending her into a panic. The sensation in her body intensify, and she is convinced something awful is about to happen. She feels the need to get outside and leaves her shopping cart full of goods behind as she walks slowly towards the exit. As soon as she is outside in the cool air, she feels a slight sense of relief and more in control as the physical sensations are losing momentum. Although she is calming down, she is still in shock and her body is shaking. It feels as if someone had just held a gun to her head. She has never felt so terrified and out of control in all her life. She calls her husband at work and tells him what happened and asks if he would meet her so they can go to the hospital together. A few hours later, Jane is lying on the hospital bed waiting for the results of medical tests she has completed. The doctor arrives and tells her that they cannot find anything physically wrong with her and that it was most likely a panic attack. This is relieving and yet confusing at the same time. A panic attack, she thinks. She remembers an aunt that experienced panic attacks but never really understood what they meant, and certainly never imagined it felt as scary as what she just went through. Glad that nothing is physically wrong, she checks out of the hospital and goes home. Within minutes of lying on the bed, she falls fast asleep. On waking the following day, Jane immediately begins to go over the ordeal in her mind. It all seems like a surreal dream. By lunchtime, she is already second-guessing the medical tests and convinces herself that something was missed and that there must be something more serious than anxiety involved. Days pass, and she cannot stop thinking about what happened in the supermarket. She still feels shaken by the experience and lives in fear that it might strike her again at any moment. For the first time in her life, she does not feel safe leaving her home. At the lawyer's practice where she works, she feels restless and cannot concentrate. Even when talking to colleagues, she is constantly thinking about her problem. She fears she might have a similar turn at work, and everyone will think she is cracking up. If that were not enough, she starts imagining scary scenarios like getting locked up in a psychiatric hospital or losing her children because she cannot take care of them. Each time she thinks these thoughts, her stomach jolts with affright. She knows she is not helping matters by thinking these things, but she cannot help herself. The anxious thoughts just keep coming, and the harder she tries to stop the thoughts, the faster they swirl around her mind. 3 weeks later, Jane is still feeling highly anxious. She has undergone more medical tests with a doctor her friend recommended, but nothing showed up. Secretly, she was hoping for something to be wrong so she could start treating it. That would at least be something she could focus her energy on. The new doctor has prescribed some anti-anxiety medication, which she has not taken yet, but will if she ever feels another panic attack coming on. The phase Jane has now entered is called general anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder. It is a feeling of lingering anxiety accompanied by anxious thoughts. It is the type of anxiety that is there in the morning on waking and often lasts throughout the day. In Jane's case, it is a direct result of her obsessive worrying over her condition. For her, the initial panic attack in the supermarket sparked fear and confusion. And this fear and confusion grew into general anxiety. Jane's life has been altered dramatically since that first panic attack. She has already canceled her vacation with friends to Europe and has told her extended family she will not be entertaining them for Christmas this year. For the next few months, Jane continues to move back and forth between experiencing panic attacks and general anxiety. She has now become locked into a cycle of panic and anxiety.
What Jane experienced is probably the most common way people experience panic attacks and then the resulting problem of general anxiety. But it does vary from person to person. Some people will experience panic attacks without the general anxiety, whereas others may never have panic attacks but only general anxiety. In Jane's case, she became highly alarmed by the sensations she felt in the supermarket. That incident sent her into a period of confusion and fear. For her, it felt like the ground had been pulled beneath her feet and her sense of security was shaken. After a person has had a few out-of-the-blue panic attacks like these, it doesn't have to be a bodily sensation alone that sparks the panic. It can turn into a fear of places or situations that the person associates with panic attacks. These are known as situational panic attacks as opposed to spontaneous panic attacks. For example, someone might have had a spontaneous panic attack while at a concert with friends. This person was feeling tired and the sensations came hard and fast out of nowhere, which resulted in a panic attack. A week later, they're sitting in the theatre and recall that the last time they were in a crowded space, they had a panic attack. That thought alone makes them anxious, which in turn triggers the anxious bodily sensations, which then, of course, triggers another panic attack. You can see how a vicious cycle of fear is established. It becomes a fear of fear, and that's how a lot of people describe their panic disorder, a fear of fear. People who experience frequent panic attacks often say things like, "I can't be anywhere that doesn't have an easy exit. As soon as I think I'm locked in, my heart starts pounding. I don't like to go shopping alone because every time I start the checkout process, I feel a bit trapped and then start to feel dizzy and want to escape." Or, "I'm okay with one-to-ones, but when I have to speak to more than one person, I get a really uncomfortable feeling and want to get out of the room." In the animation with Jane, she started to become very anxious when away from home. And as mentioned, this can turn into a fear of panic attacks in a variety of situations. Have a look at the following animation.
Jane was invited to have a coffee after work with her colleague Lisa. 5 weeks ago, she experienced her first panic attack, and since then, she has been in a state of general anxiety. She feels anxious and uptight throughout the day, and frequently fears the arrival of another panic attack. She has shied away from social events since her first panic attack. If we were to score her anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 represents complete relaxation and 10 total panic, we can see that Jane's anxiety level is currently hovering around the 5 mark. Her colleague sitting opposite her is feeling much more relaxed at around 3, which would be a normal level of daily stress. Notice the red ball around Jane's stomach. This red ball signifies the general anxiety that Jane is feeling right now. She tries to follow the conversation with her colleague, but cannot stop thinking about the anxiety and begins to feel more uncomfortable sitting in the busy cafe. She feels her unease grow stronger and thinks about excusing herself to go home early. Just as she has that thought, her heart suddenly skips a beat and starts pounding really hard, so hard that she can feel it beat in her throat. This is exactly what happened when she had a panic attack in the supermarket, and she reacts with fear to the sensation. What will she do if she has a panic attack here in front of her colleague? The fearful reaction she is having to the sensations sends another bolt of panic through her body. To her, it feels as if an internal bomb has just been primed and is about to explode. This is very terrifying for her, and it just came out of nowhere like the last time. She feels trapped sitting at the table and excuses herself by standing up. She does not want her colleagues to know that something might be wrong. Each sensation she feels in her body causes a shock wave of panic to pass through her. Jane fears that the experience will intensify to the point of no return. She is reaching the climax of her panic attack, and it is a moment of sheer terror for her. Her heart is pounding, her breathing feels restricted, and she feels dizzy and fears she might faint. The feeling is so terrifying that Jane feels her very life is in danger.
The Panic Away program teaches you a new and empowered way to respond to a panic attack, as well as demonstrating how to end feelings of general anxiety. But before I continue, it's important to be aware of a few basic things. The first is that having an anxiety disorder, like panic disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, does not mean that you're going to lose control or go insane. It is not a mental illness. Anxiety is a behavioral problem that can be easily corrected with the right guidance and information. That's a really important point because many people fear that their anxiety problem is a sign of a mental illness. It's not. The other thing is that an anxiety disorder has nothing to do with a lack of courage. In fact, it is quite the opposite. People with anxiety actually do the bravest things. They get up each day and face their anxiety. They pick themselves up after every setback and deal with inner challenges the average person never has to face. I've worked with people like firemen, police officers, and soldiers who've done very brave things in their line of duty, but tell me privately that dealing with their anxiety has been the greatest challenge for them. Of course, the average person can't understand why it's such a big deal to drive on the freeway or go to church or even to go shopping. But for the person with anxiety, accomplishing these things can be a massive achievement. It doesn't make headline news, but facing your fear daily is real bravery. The good news is this bravery does not go unrewarded. Once the person faces their anxiety issue, they develop an inner strength that the average person never gets to develop. You see, no matter how many brave things you do in the world, if you have not been challenged on an inner level, then you miss out on an opportunity to develop real inner strength. That is the hidden opportunity anxiety presents to you, to become a bigger person than you already are. That is what you will learn with this program. Another important point to share is that you are not in any danger from a panic attack. A panic attack will not harm you. The fight or flight response that you experience during a panic attack is a built-in mechanism going back to our cavemen days. It is there to protect you from danger, not to harm you. Rest assured that your body's primary goal is to keep you alive and well. Panic attacks are not your enemy. They are the result of you misinterpreting the signals your body is sending, a bit like a false alarm. Think of all the panic attacks you've experienced and how you've always come out the other side, possibly petrified, but nevertheless alive and undamaged. Aren't you still here after all those attacks that convinced you that you were going to die? It's something I can laugh about now, but I remember during 1 or 2 intense panic attacks of my own, almost saying my last goodbyes. I was that sure it was all going to end. So the real issue that causes most of the upset and distress is the fear of what a panic attack might do. The 21-7 technique will remove that fear. So where do we begin? Well, the first clue to a successful recovery lies in our ability to move with the panic attack, not against it, to fully engage with the experience. The fear and panic experienced during high anxiety is a result of the individual reacting to the bodily sensations and believing the false alarm is an attack. So the first key to understanding is this: there's no panic attack if there's no perceived threat. Do you realize that there's a big similarity between a panic attack and a roller coaster ride? Both are exhilarating experiences that excite our nervous system and cause all manner of heightened bodily sensations. The roller coaster, however, does not cause us to panic because we're aware that the heightened bodily sensations are all part of the ride and will come to an end when the ride stops. This is the same attitude we need to adopt towards a panic attack. Once the anxiety ride starts, you are no longer going to panic because you understand what is happening and have a new way of dealing with it. You decide to buckle yourself in and participate fully. Your willing participation in the experience will process the fear. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that if you embrace the fear and let the sensations of anxiety run freely through you, rather than suppress them, your fear will subside. The sensations that usually terrify you become exactly that, sensations and nothing more. Sensations like sweaty palms, dizziness, palpitations, shortness of breath are uncomfortable sensations you could do without, but the key difference with this approach is that the sensations stop developing into a state of panic. Up until now, these sensations have been triggering a false alarm, causing you to have a panic attack. It's a false alarm because there is no real danger, but because your mind does not know what's happening or how to turn the alarm off, it goes into a state of confusion, fear, and then panic. Think of it like this: your body is a house and your mind lives in that house. The house has a very sensitive alarm system that is constantly being triggered by the slightest change in the environment. Each time the alarm goes off, your mind, who lives in the house, gets a fright and thinks there may be a real threat, an intruder. If the alarm does not turn off quickly, your mind becomes convinced that the threat is real and goes into a state of confusion and panic. It makes no difference if the security company calls and tells your mind everything is fine and that there is nothing to worry about. The only thing that will stop your mind from being anxious is turning the alarm off, and that's exactly what the 21-7 technique does. It enables you to turn the alarm off so that your mind can relax and avoid a state of panic.